Hi guys, welcome back to Caffeine and Questions. It's been a while since I did this, and honestly, I do it because it kind of gets uh, feedback from the customer on where we're going, and I'm hoping to get some questions that kind of put me down a road I'd like to talk about. But I'm going to answer them all, and usually I kind of move them around, but I don't have time, so I'm just going to go down the line and answer them. First one, long range class in Dallas, not on the schedule. All right, I actually don't run that program. Sean Kirkwood does. I don't know that we have a range to teach long range anywhere near Dallas, but if you know of a long range facility that has a classroom and would host us, then email training@fieldcraftsurvival.com and Sean will try to set it up. Now, it's unlikely I will do it. We have other guys that can do that. I just have too many things going on, and I do teach ballistics classes, but more and more I'm getting swamped. Um, Favorite scope reticle for long range, Trimmer 3. That reticle is phenomenal. It has mills, it has wind dots, it has ranging it has everything you need. It looks super busy when you look through it first, but once you get to know it and you kind of bring it together with the Kestrel, ballistic calculator is a phenomenal capability, and it stops you doing math for a wind call, which I hate math. Favorite cartridge for 500 plus yards, 6.5 Creedmoor. Again, everything I tell you here is an opinion. This opinion on 6.5 Creedmoor has been proven by extensive testing in SOCOM when we were trying to replace the 308 as a sniper support rifle. Now, it it has a lot of advantages, but I tell you, if you're shooting even out to 800, then and you're running a 308, you're fine. If you want a better round, with which delivers more energy, is more efficient in the air, is less deflected by the wind, then 6.5 Creedmoor is a better round for that. But if the ammo's more expensive, harder to get, then shoot the rifle that is within your capability. If you haven't outshot your 308, then you could probably stick with that. Personally, I like 6.5 Creedmoor, and it has been extensively tested and proven to be better at extended ranges. Okay. Need more stories from Mogadishu, man. I don't have time. I actually haven't told that many stories because it was such a weird place that almost some of the stories are almost unbelievable. There's a buddy of mine who was in Mogadishu with me. He was a UN security guy. I've asked him to come in the podcast. So if me and him sit down and talk, we'll trigger each other's stories, and I think that'll be pretty cool. What made you go to SF and not SEALs or Rangers? Well, first of all, I went in the Army and not the Navy, so SEALs weren't even an option for me. I wouldn't be a good SEAL anyway. I'm just not the type. Ranger Regiment is a phenomenal unit, but it's kind of a place, excuse me, you want to start your career, right? Basic training, AIT, jump school, Ranger Regiment, boom. Phenomenal place to start. But it's for 18, 22-year-old kids, man, not for 29. I was 29 when I came to the Army. Couldn't go to SF till I was 35 because I wasn't a US citizen. You don't want to be going to Ranger Regiment at 35. Not the place for you. So SF was the right place for me. Now, I'll say, when I went through training and I went to my first team in SF, I was horribly disappointed. It was not a good team and not a good fit for me. And when I moved over to the SIF company, I ended up in a team with Mike Glover and a bunch of really talented pipe hitters. It was awesome. But that first team, I didn't really blend with that first team at all. Pretty disappointed. There's musical preferences. Caught the Boomtown Rats on an Instagram post. I don't really listen to music that much, but when I post sometimes on Instagram, I'll go back to my freaking youth, the Clash, the Jam, Boomtown Rats, all that punk stuff from the 80s. I still love it. It's awesome. I think I threw some Kate Bush in there at one point, but I just throw on music that I think is cool, and most Americans are probably not familiar with, unless they're my age. Do you think you'll be able to retire and hang things up, or be happy or busy? Okay. My wife said this to me the other day. There's no way I could retire and just stop. I have to be busy or I would lose my freaking mind. Now, going at 1,000,000 miles an hour like I do now is not optimal either. And it does wear down on you. I took a trip, and somebody else asked me about being burned out, but I took a trip to the mountains last weekend, got up, got away, did a little hiking, needed to reset my brain. I was burned out. And physically, it's not a problem for me, even though I have a lot of injuries. It's mentally. It's dealing with all the crap I deal with and dealing with people being difficult, and that wears down on you after a while. And but I wouldn't want to stop completely. I think I would like to maybe do some consulting, and like for companies dealing with the military and acquisitions and programmatics and stuff like that. I think I could be value added because I lived in that world for years, and people just don't. They put in programs in for these fair and open competitions for military contracts, and you just don't understand how it works. And just being able to submit the right paperwork, submit the right product, and get feedback from the end user with a lot of experience is where I could add value, I think, but that would be part-time. Favorite meal, I'm a terrible eater. Favorite meal, freaking candy bar. I don't eat very well, and I should, and I wish I did, but I'm always on the go, so I live off gas station sandwiches for days. And I'm not a big food guy. I'm not. Food does not really hold a lot of meaning for me. It's fuel to keep going. That's all it is. So I don't care what I eat as long as I just get something in me and I roll on. So that's a weird question. For me, are you coming back to New Jersey for classes? Unlikely. New Jersey is difficult to get to, and we ran a couple of classes up there, and they actually don't sell that well. And that's a marketing issue on our end, which I'm addressing now. Or I'm going to try to address, but once we drop a few classes in a few areas and they just don't sell very well, we kind of pivot and go somewhere else, because it's a big logistics problem for us to get to New Jersey with all our equipment in a state that's not gun friendly, and set up training if it's not going to sell. Okay, will you be back in Grant Tom's channel? I'd love to. I got to reach out to Mike. He's reached out to me a couple of times to come back up there. And I think I'm going to try to put that on the schedule spring next year. I like Mike personally. I think he's very good at what he does. And I would like to get back on his channel at some point. The first time I went on his channel and we did a video, it was on the ASR sniper rifle. And I was pretty new to the whole social media thing. He cross-promoted me, and I refreshed my Instagram and it went up 7,000 followers. So, and I still have people today going, I found Fieldcraft through you and I found you through Grant Thumb's video. Okay. So I would like to go back, and look, a lot of guys reach out to me for kind of cross promotion stuff, and I'm a little picky. But I go on Mike's channel. I like Mike. What kind of secondary comms do you use? Ham radio, MG-RED, or something else? So I am working pretty hard right now on this bug out planning course that we're building for. It's going to drop here 1 December, I think, but it's going to be on the last weekend of February. And it's built around all this stuff. And I'm pulling in Brian Edwards, who is the regiment CSM for special operations, knows a lot about planning. And we talked yesterday. Sean's going to be involved. We're going to pull together this, we're going to take all our experience in military planning, and we're going to kind of civilianize it and boil it down to a bug out planning course. Right now, it's not this freaking zombie apocalypse, government are coming, any of that BS, right? It's just evacuation, right? If there is a breach in a nuclear facility, if there's a freaking flood like Hurricane Katrina, and you have to displace from your house, you've got to go somewhere. Now, ideally, you will go to a relative, but that's not an option for everybody. And so when you start digging down into the weeds on, you know, what do you take, what do you leave, how do you get there, your routes, your primary, alternate, contingency, emergency routes, prescription meds, pets, all these things that people don't think about, communications, that's all going to be addressed in that course. Because honestly, I don't have a great plan right now. I will by the end of this, because I'm going to use my plan as a template. When you come to that course, it's 2 days of planning, and we're going to go through all bug out bags and what to bring, and security and comms and everything. And then we're going to do practical exercise. I'm going to break up into groups and we used to call them tactical exercises with our troops. We sit down and go, okay, you live here, and you need to get there, here, go, and your plan is a little group, and whatever you learn, you'll be able to take and apply it to your own situation. And then later in the year, we'll do a course called Lockdown, which I'm working on now too. But Lockdown is basically, I can't leave. I have an elderly parent, I have small children, I don't have the capacity to displace. I have to stay put. How do I secure my location and hunker down, all right? So that's 2 courses coming that I'm working on right now. So when I'm not actively doing stuff like this, I'm back there kind of doing research and building classes. But all the communication stuff will be addressed in that course, okay? Preferred carry ammo. So look, I carry a 9mm handgun and I just use ball ammunition. It works and it works great. I think people get very caught up with, oh, I carry this 115 grain, this bullet, Sierra dot match, whatever. Honestly, I don't care. I just carry ball ammunition and it works. And it works again and again and again. And it's much more important to be able to utilize a handgun efficiently and know when to pull it and when to keep it stowed, all right? And that's personal security course teaches that. That's a more important thing than what's in the magazine. What's in the magazine will pretty much work if it's a decent sized round, all right? 9mm would probably be my minimum. I'm not carrying a 380. I have one. I don't like those smaller bullets, but any kind of decent sized round is going to do the job. I don't get too tied up in semantics. I don't get too tied up in calibers. I don't get too tied up in this gun over that gun and this light over that light. I don't freaking care. I'll run a light from Walmart if it works. And too many people get caught up on, well, I shoot this gun and this, everything else is trash. It's actually not trash. It's actually probably really good. You're just tied to one product, and I just don't do that. What do you think of the Beretta M9, M92? So I carried the Beretta for years. That's the 9mm handgun that the Army had that just got replaced. And I mean, it's a decent handgun. It's heavy. Double action trigger for the first round, then single action. It has a safety on it, which in SF we never ever engage. We use it as a decocking lever to drop the hammer. We never put the safety on, ever. Because when you pull that thing and you have to utilize it, that safety will screw you up. It was a decent handgun at the time. It replaced the 1911 in the Army, but it's outdated now, and I'm glad to see the Army moving to the SIG. It's a better handgun, okay? Now SF, it's weird because SF's Army, right? So we still get all the Army stuff, but we get the SOCOM stuff as well. So special operations teams have M9s. They will also now get the M17, the Army new handgun, the SIG, but we also have Glock 19s, and they're technically a low-vis pistol, but everybody carries it as a main weapon, as a sidearm, okay? So we have Glock 19s as well, and that's what I carried for years and years and years. Best way to mount an AR in a truck, ceiling behind the seat, suggestion on rack to buy. I don't have an AR in my car, in my truck. I don't, because when I go training, let's say I'm going this weekend to Georgia to run personal security, I'm not taking a rifle because I will never, ever leave a rifle in my truck. I will never leave a gun in my truck overnight. I just won't do it. It's irresponsible as a gun owner to leave firearms where a criminal can get their hands on it. It's your duty as a firearms owner to have your firearm secured, right? So if I take a rifle, I have to lug that thing in and out of the hotel every night. And I don't need it, right? I'll take a Glock 19 with a couple of mags and I'm good to go. So where to mount it in your truck, that completely depends on your truck, but I just don't feel like I need a rifle on a day-to-day basis personally. Things are not that bad. The benefit of 300 blackout, is it worth the premium cost of ammo over 5.56? No, it's not. Again, it's a niche round. It's about 300 meters and in. Nothing wrong with 5.56. 5.56 will do the job. I'm telling you right now. And it is kind of a niche ammo for 300 blackout, and it sounds cool. 300 blackout. Have you ever dealt with burnout? I go very, very fast. It's hard to keep up with me sometimes, but I do burn out, and I've gotten better at knowing when I need to take a step back, because I'm starting to get annoyed at everything and pissed off at everything that happens. And at that point, you need to mentally reset your brain. And to me, I got to go to the mountains. I got to get some solitude and do some hiking. I don't have any hobbies really. And somebody else asked me what my hobbies are. I really don't have any hobbies, and I wish I did, because I think that would help me a lot. I get uber focused on work. I get way too focused on work. I take work way too seriously. I've always been like this. And I get annoyed about things I can't control, and it's not healthy. So I've gotten better at stepping back, I think. Now I'm going again this weekend. I am teaching personal security in Georgia. So me and my wife are driving down there, because if I drive and I do it myself, we save the company money and flying instructors in and paying them on a daily rate. Plus I like to meet people and I like to teach. And then when I get back, that next weekend I'm teaching that course here, and it's just go, 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 and it seems to be constant. So I when I start feeling myself getting annoyed, then I'll try to take a step back if I can, and reset a little bit. Favorite handgun of all time. Again, people get caught up in products. Oh, this gun over that gun. Somebody asked me a while ago, might have been on the last one of these, what's your home defense gun? I have a Springfield XD with a 19 round mag and a light with a laser on it sitting on my nightstand. That's my home defense gun. And people are like, oh, I'm shocked. Why would you be shocked? It works every time, and it works well. And it has a 19 round mag, and I'm not taking it out and putting it in my car and carrying it every day and putting it back. It sits there, and that's its job, and it keeps a light on. I don't carry a light on my carry gun because I generally don't go out after dark, and my holster won't fit it. So I have a handheld light. But my home defense gun has a light mounted on it with a laser, and that is perfect gun for home defense. So my favorite handgun of all time, if I had to pick one, would be a Glock 19. Okay, Sig make great guns, Smith & Wesson make great guns, freaking a lot of good companies out there. But because I have such a background with Glock 19, I started with a Sig P226 in the Irish Army in Special Ops. Actually, I started with a Browning High Power in 9mm in the Irish Army, and then when I went to SOF, we had revolvers for some reason, but we also had Sig P226s, great handgun, right? And then I came to American Army, 9mm Beretta. I think as a contractor in Somalia, I had 9mm Beretta, 9mm Beretta in the Army, then Glock 19, and I carried a Glock 19 for years and years. So I made Glock 19 my carry gun because that's what I had at work, and I'm actually quite good with it. And it's reliable, it's accurate, it's small enough, but it packs enough of a punch. So that would be my favorite handgun of all time. Are there better handguns out there? That's purely an opinion-based thing, okay? If I had to change it, I would put a red dot on it, because I think a red dot it's a phenomenal upgrade for a handgun, even a carry gun. When you think about it, right? Everybody gets trained front sights, front sights, front sights, front sights. In a gunfight, you're not going to see your front sights, okay? And you shouldn't really be focused on them, because you should be looking at that target to determine hostile intent. If I'm uber focused on a front sight, I'm not looking at that guy's hands to see if he's making a threatening move, all right? But with a red dot, I can superimpose it over the target, keep my head up, and I can put that dot on his chest, but I can still see what his hands are doing to make sure I identify hostile intent before I drop the hammer, all right? So my next thing is to put a red dot on my Glock 19 or get a new one, but that would be it. How did you find contractors for private military contracting? I assume, how did I get a job as a contractor for private military contract? I got it through a contact, and that's generally how it works. When I got out of the Irish Army, a guy who'd been in the Ranger Wing with me approached me and said, hey, do you want to go to Somalia and do some work? And I said, yes. What's the work? Okay, I would have went for free. But that's how I got it. I got it through a personal contact, word of mouth. And back then, that was 94, right after Black Hawk Down. Contracting wasn't a thing. It didn't really become a very... The job description I was given was private security advisor, right? And the whole military contractor thing was a very GWAT thing. At least that term was. It's been around forever. Private soldiers have been in employment since fucking Middle Ages, right? So, but it word of mouth is how I did it, okay? And I would caution guys who are getting out of special operations now. What you'll get these companies who are trying to bid for contracts overseas. And part of that bidding process is they they have to submit resumes of their employees. So they'll reach out to you, and this has happened to me. They'll reach out to you and say, "Oh, we want to pay you this massive salary to go overseas and do this, this, this." And I know a lot of guys it happens to. So you send them your resume. They use that resume to bid on the contract. They get the contract. You never hear from them again. They hire guys with minimal background cheaply to do the work. All right, they just use your resume to get the job. It's a pretty common thing. I heard years ago that there was an ad in the Financial Times in London for private military contractors for overseas work, and you had to submit your resume to this PO box and all that, right? So a bunch of retired SAS guys did that, and it turned out that the IRA put the ad in the paper and got all this intel. Now, I don't know if that's true. I've looked it up since and I could never find anything on it, but my God, I can imagine that would work. Pretty scary. If you could pick one course right now, which one would you suggest? So I hate answering a question with the words, it depends, but it really does. It depends where you are in your level of preparedness and your skill level and what you go. If you have never taken a course and you're starting fresh, medical training, first aid, trauma response, stop the bleed, CPR, those are skills you're most likely to need rather than gunfighting skills. Thank God, right? Thank God we don't need gunfighting skills more than first aid. But I would suggest first aid and trauma response, first aid medical treatment, that base course we teach with very qualified instructors, that is where you need to start. If you don't need to know how to put a tourniquet on, you don't need to be learning how to do long range shooting or freaking shooting a carbine, right? Get medical skills first. That's the most important thing. And then build on top of that from there. Do you think the Mark 12 is still a viable option? I think the Mark 12, which the Mark numbers are Navy designations, and Crane, which handles all our weapons and all that, is Navy. So we always give Mark. I think the Mark 12 was the 5.56 sniper rifle, right? Last time I had it on my team was '05. I think it was great at the time. I think it was ahead of its time, but I think it's outdated now. When we ran in buildings and rooftops and all that in Baghdad, we carried sniper rifle SR-25s on our back, carried M4s to clear the house, and we pulled it out, right? If I had to do that now, I would run a 14.5 with a suppressor with a 1-6 optic on it, and I can hit anything I need in the city with that thing. I don't need, I think if I remember, the Mark 12 had, I'm going to look that up because I can't remember if, yep, it was the special purpose rifle. Yeah, it was the 5.56 rifle. It had an 18-inch barrel and a suppressor on it and a decent optic. It was ahead of its time, and then it got phased out because as programs come in, they like to get rid of other programs, and it justifies the money. But I think it was good at the time. Why they pulled it, I understand financially why they pulled it now, having been in the first mod world, but I think it's an outdated rifle now. I think there's better stuff out there. With better twist rates and better barrels, better suppressors that can do that job. Preferred red dot for SIG 365 macro, 300 background using truck gun. Look, we've gone through all these red dot evolutions, right? I actually have one of those little M68 aim points. I love that thing. It's awesome. It sits nice and high. It's got minimal parallax. But red dots have gone from that to EOTechs, and then they've whittled down, they've gotten smaller. So the red dot on a pistol now, like a Delta Point Pro, is also usable on a rifle, okay? Because your head's up, you got a nice riser on it, your both eyes open, and you're superimposing that dot. So something small like a Delta Point Pro, like, God, what's that other one? Something small like that. I don't. And like the Aimpoint Micro T2 is a phenomenal red dot, but it's like $1,000. I'm not paying $1,000 for a red dot. I'm just not. I'm getting something for $250, and I'm running that. I don't pay a lot of money. I know when we tested red dots for pistols in SOCOM, the Leopold Delta Point Pro won the comp. Now that doesn't mean it's right for you, because we have certain parameters we test them to, but durability is a big one, and that's the one that won. So I have one on a rifle, and I have one on my SIG X-Carry Legion pistol, and I love it. That's just me. Do you speak Swedish? Best regards from Sweden. No, my wife speaks Swedish. I do not. I was going to say no in Swedish, but I don't even know what that is. Nej. Is it nej? Yeah, okay, there you go. The rest of the video on the Tavor X95. Okay, so again, I don't have a media team here. I have my wife with a camera and her hard work. So we did a video. I zeroed it and grouped it, and then I grouped and shot my AR side by side. So I side by side them so people would have a comparison. And it's, personally, it depends what you're looking for, right? I like it. I like how it feels. I like how it holds. It's a bullpup all the way to the back. It's easy to shoot. It's kind of a fun gun. If I wanted another AR, I would have got another AR. But it does not have the accuracy of an AR, at least not of the BCM that I fired, right? It would shoot sub-minute angle one group, and then the next group would be 1.2, 1.3, something like that, right? So it went back and forth, whereas the AR I shot was very consistently shooting all the time. We're working on the video right now. I wanted to make it very, very, I wanted to give you what you need. So it just takes time. So it's coming. Any regrets in life? No. To have regrets in life, it means you're not happy with where you are in life, and I'm actually quite happy with where I am in life. There's little things you would change, right? But nothing bigger, nothing huge. And that road leads nowhere. You are where you are. Looking back doesn't really serve anything. Is there any way to recommend training for the mental aspect of selection courses? The mental aspect of selection, I think you're overthinking it, man. I think people think that it's this mythical thing and you have to be Superman to get through. You absolutely do not. And that's all of it. That's SEAL training and Air Force, all those things, right? All you're doing in selection is weeding out people who are not there for the right reason. So mentally, if you're not there for the right reason, there's no way to mentally prepare you for that, right? Now, if you go there thinking you're going to get all this sleep and you're not going to be challenged mentally and physically, then you're kidding yourself. But if you go there with the mindset that nothing you can do to me will make me quit, and I will just bust my ass and I will be physically fit before I get there, and I will dig deep every day, then you're good to go, okay? But if you go there with any kind of, Vinny's barking at somebody, if you go there with any kind of doubt, and you're going to look for an avenue to get out, and that's what people do. They go, you know, on day 3, they're tired and hungry and cold or whatever, and they go, oh, my leg's hurting. I think I have to stop because I'm injured. Well, you're not really injured. That's an escape for you to mentally save face. That shouldn't even be in your mindset. You should never think, just be like, I'm doing this. If I finish the whole thing and they don't select me, well, I'll come back next year and try harder, but there's no way I'll quit. So don't overthink it. Don't self-assess. Just go, bust your ass every day. And if you're that right person, you're that right person. And there's no real way to mentally get ready for it other than say, I don't like my job, I'm going here, and nothing will stop me. I remember talking to Mike Ritland on his podcast, and he was a SEAL, and he was saying doing flutter kicks on the beach and looking out at those ships out in the ocean is the best motivation there is, because if you fail, you're going out to those ships to do bullshit work. All right, thoughts on the M5 and the M250. Oh, that's it now. I left that to last. So that's the new program for the rifle and for the machine gun that SIG won the contract for. So first of all, SIG is a phenomenal company. SIG made a decision about 8 years ago, I think. And I think the CEO said, hey, we're just going to crush everybody on these military contracts. So they reached out and they pulled in experts. And they pulled in guys who worked acquisitions at Delta Force. I know the guys personally, right? And special operations, guys who were operators, and then they moved into that as they were moving out, right? One of them I know quite well. I shot sniper comps with him, and he's a no bullshit guy. So He was the first one I know they hired. They hired a bunch more. He pulled in guys he knew, so they built that team. Now they've gone after everything hard. They won the Army contract. They won the 1-6 optic, which that program started with me in special operations. They won that. They won the one for the Army. Now they won the rifle, the machine gun, and the ammo for the Army, right? So phenomenal company and crushed it. And I've no doubt that the rifle and the machine gun are great guns, right? And they're 6.8. Where my issue starts is with the requirement in the first place, right? So we replaced a 5.56 machine gun, belt-fed machine gun, and a 7.62 belt-fed machine gun with 6.8. Okay, in a gunfight, an incremental improvement is very beneficial, right? And I'm not saying it's an incremental improvement. It's at least on paper, it's better than that. The problem is the billions and billions of dollars we pumped into this. I've seen the gaps in many other areas, and I would have liked to have seen the money go in there before this. I don't think it was our biggest gap. Look at the American military now has a tendency to try to create better soldiers with equipment and not training. And it's actually the other way around. It should be, right? We will sink billions into a new XYZ system, but we will not sink the money needed into training. And training in the US military is garbage. It's absolutely garbage. And it's very, very controlled now, and it's less to do with the soldier's capability on the battlefield and more to do with the commander's promotion and the commander covering his ass. Because if soldiers get killed on the battlefield, we live in this society where we like to crush people and blame somebody, right? So they do all these validation exercises now where they can check the box. So if something happens downrange, they can say, well, they went through validation, right? So I'm covered. And the validation has become, we've sacrificed good training for check the box training, right? And that is happening all over the place. Take Fort Bragg, right? Which I'm intimately familiar with. I spent 20 years here. There's a couple of MOUT facilities. MOUT is military operations in urban terrain, right? It's villages that they built to learn how to fight in cities. And most of the fighting is in cities. But those facilities in Bragg are garbage. They haven't been upgraded in decades. Like Range 68 is concrete block buildings with no windows and no doors and no floors. Like they're flooded most of the time and they're absolute garbage. Range 74 is the best MOUT facility on Fort Bragg and it's shit. It's terrible and it hasn't been upgraded in years. So, but there's nobody gets promoted and you can't get all these acquisitions people and all these congressmen and all that. They don't get money flooding into their districts by building up training capability. So I think even though SIG met the requirement and crushed it and did a great job, I think my issue is with the requirement, and I think it was built off a bullshit requirement by Milley, and Milley is a piece of shit and lost the fucking war in Afghanistan and nothing happened to him, and he has been politicized and he has sold out many, many years ago. So when he started, this all came from him initially. It's all, there's so much money laundering and moving things around and in that acquisitions world. It's pretty disgusting, right? Great gun, great machine gun, great rifle. It's the requirement I have a problem with, and I think there was things that were much more important to give soldiers a better capability than that. Purely my opinion, doesn't really mean anything. All right, that's all I got. Man, I think I got them all. And I'm sure there's probably more by now, but a couple of things before I finish up. Let me see if I have any more. 5 Legion and what optics I have. That's the Delta Point Pro is the optic I have on my Legion. What kind of bipod do you recommend for outdoor and indoor rifle shooting? I don't know. Look, I've used Harris bipods for years and years and years. Atlas bipods are great, but I'm sure there's better ones out there. what kind of rifle equipment would you recommend? I'm going to have, so Kevin Estella's here now, and I'm going to put some of the scheduling responsibilities I have on him because it's just time consuming. I'm going to try to do more content, and I'm going to push Kevin into more content too, right? So I was in a gun shop yesterday picking up a rifle, and there was a woman there, and she was getting a shotgun, and I assume it was for home defense because it was a little freaking, it had no buttstock on it and all that, and she was clueless. And the guy was asking her, well, do you want 20 gauge or 12 gauge? And she was like, well, what's the difference? Okay, and then so I want content put out for very basic stuff like that, load, unload, clear a shotgun, right? There's tons and tons of stuff that we can do, and we can do better in short form content to educate the consumer. And I'm not looking for anything. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just trying to give you the education, because that lady in that store will not get it when she buys a store. So one of those would be, what kind of rifle, what kind of equipment do you recommend for new gun owners, right? That's a pretty easy one. And I have tons of other ideas. And a lot of people do not want to drop most people don't have thousands of dollars to drop on equipment, right? You want it good enough to fill the gap, the capability gap you have, right? So if you need a home defense gun, you need X, Y, and Z, and that's good enough for what you're doing. Not this high-end stuff where we spend thousands and thousands of dollars because people just don't have it. 100-yard shooting, okay. I think that's it. I'm not sure how long that was. If you shoot me questions periodically, I'll write them down, and then the next time I do this, I'll add them in at the end, and you don't have to wait until I drop one of these Ask Me a Question things. We just wrapped up Breakout, phenomenal course, great students. We have a lot of classes built for the first 6 months of next year. A couple of new classes, like I said, bug out planning, lockdown, another breakout in March. I would highly recommend that course. And a lot of stuff going on, but I am pivoting into more content because I run through Instagram and I just don't like what I see. It's all guys shooting freaking pistol on the range and pulling up their pro timer and showing the camera. Nobody fucking cares, dude. Nobody cares that you shot that string of 5 on your controlled environment. Nobody, at least I don't fucking care. I find it boring as hell, and I think there's a massive market out there for content that's educational, somewhat entertaining, and people are crying out for. But again, hit me up if you have suggestions for me. All right, thanks guys. I'll see you next time.